Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Hayley Marie. In this tutorial, I'll be walking you through the process of making 3D Wreath Christmas cards. I hope you enjoy painting along with this festive watercolour project. Throughout November and December, I'll be creating Christmas and winter themed watercolours using only a few shades to make it easy for everyone to follow along, even if you have a limited palette. For this tutorial, I'll be using green, red, yellow, white and black, and we'll do a bit of colour mixing to create orange, brown and different shades of green. The materials that you'll need are watercolours, the colours mentioned above, mixed media or watercolour paper, brushes, I'll be using a size 4 round and a size 0 round. Optional materials are gold watercolour, white gouache, ribbon and 3D foam stickers for adding dimension to the cards. If you prefer a simpler version, you can skip the 3D elements and paint your wreath directly onto the card for a lovely 2D design. To start, let's grab our watercolour or mixed media paper. I'll be using Daler Rowney mixed media paper for this tutorial. Since I'll be showing you 2 designs, you'll need 3 pieces of paper in total. Once you've torn the sheets from the pad, if you're using the same paper as me, trim off the rough edges to neaten them up. Set one aside. We'll use that later for the wreath paintings. With the other 2 pieces, measure 15 centimeters and cut them to size for the main body of the cards. If you did decide to do the card in 2D, fold both pieces of paper and follow the next step. Okay, now we have our paper ready, I'm going to grab a compass and measure half of 11 centimeters to make an 11 centimeter circle, just as I have here with this one. Start by drawing 2 circles on your page, making sure they're far enough from the edges and from each other to leave space for the wreath leaves. Next, let's mix our first colour. Combine green and yellow to create a bright, fresh shade of green. Then add just a touch of red to slightly tone down the brightness. Once you're happy with the colour, begin painting along the circle to form the base of your wreath. Keep adding paint until the circle is filled out with jagged, uneven edges to resemble leaves. Using your green mix, dab on extra touches of colour, blending the tones together to add depth and interest to your wreath. Whilst that dries, let's move on to our next wreath. This time mixing green with a touch of red and black to make a deep green colour. Doing as we did before, painting the circle and then dabbing the colour, creating the jagged edge. With that same deep green, I think adding a little more to our first wreath and some of the green watercolour, dabbing until you've completed the whole circle. Back to our second wreath, add some more deep green. You can see it is starting to look like separate leaves are forming. Leave these both to fully dry and we will be ready for the next step. Grabbing our red first, let's paint some holly berries clustered together radically around the wreath. Then back to our second wreath, I've decided to add a bit more brightness to the leaves, so adding in some of the bright green mix. Be careful not to use too much water at this stage, as it can lift the paint from areas you've already worked on. I think for our first wreath, let's have holly, red flowers, tiny red berries and some gold berries, as it is Christmas after all. Then for our second wreath, dried orange slices, pine cones, gold flowers and then white berries or some baby's breath. We'll need to mix a few new colours, a light pink red for the flowers, a brown for the pine cones and an orange for the orange slices. For the brown, start by mixing red and green, then add a touch of black. Probably a little less than I just did. If it turns out too dark, simply mix in a bit more red followed by a touch of green to balance it out. For the light pink red shade, combine white and red until you get a soft rosy tone. Finally, for the orange slices, mix red and yellow, then add a small dab of white to lighten it slightly. I'm painting the orange slices randomly. I'll do some clustered together, some half shown and then separately. Same for our pine cones. The pine cones can be painted as a circle, then slightly pointed at one edge to make a cone shape. Then moving back to the other wreath, we can paint in some pink florals and deep green holly leaves. Followed by tiny red berry clusters. Now I'm painting in some cinnamon sticks, though I later decided to paint over them as I wasn't completely sure about the look. You can choose to skip this step if you prefer, or keep them in if you think they add a nice touch. Once those areas have dried, let's add some yellow centres to the flowers. I mixed a bit of white into the yellow to help the centres stand out more. Next, using my new gold watercolour set, which I mentioned in my previous video, I'll link it in the description along with all other materials used today. Using the gold watercolour, paint a few gold berry clusters for a subtle shimmer. Finally, with a red paint, outline each flower to really make them pop from the page. And do the same with the green holly leaves for a cohesive festive finish. And then adding some white dots on all the berries to make it look like lights reflecting off of them. Making a slightly deeper orange by mixing a bit more red, we are going to paint some segments on the oranges. Grabbing your white, then outline each segment to really define each orange slice. With the pine cones, again mix some white with our brown mix and paint little lines to give off the effect of the pine cone scales. At this stage, I decided to remove the cinnamon sticks. While adding a light watered down layer of gold watercolour to create a subtle shimmer, I painted over the area where the cinnamon sticks were, which effectively erased them. I added some gold shimmer to Wreath 1 too. Now that Wreath 2 is dry, I've painted tiny gold flowers with the gold watercolour and went in last minute with a bit more diluted deep green, dabbing at the wreath, making it look like more leaves are present, and then purposely adding pointed leaves dotted around. For our last step of painting, I've grabbed some white gouache. If you don't have white gouache, then using the white watercolour should be fine too. I'm using this to paint white berries or baby's breath. With the deep green, painting in some little leaves where the oranges are and adding that last bit of texture. Once you are happy with how your wreath looks, you can cut them out ready for our cards. Skip to the next chapter if you are not making a 3D card and have painted directly onto the cards. Grab your scissors and carefully cut around the outside of each wreath. I like to leave a tiny border rather than cutting right up to the leaf edges. For the centre, you have two choices. You can leave it for a 3D effect or cut it out completely. I love the look of a fully open wreath, so that's what I'll do. To safely cut out the centre, I use a little blue tack underneath to protect the surface, pierce a small hole in the centre, then cut lines from the hole out to the edges of the wreath. Next, roughly cut around the shape and then carefully trim from underneath, cutting close to the wreath just like we did with the outer edge. And a quick safety note, be extra careful with your fingers whilst doing this step. Repeat the process with this one too. Once that stage is complete, grab some double-sided foam sticky pads. Cut each pad into 4 pieces so we can spread them evenly across the wreath. Take your 2 pieces of paper and score down the middle, fold over and then repeat once more so your cards are ready. Now we're ready to stick the wreath onto the cards. Place a foam pad at the top, bottom and sides of each wreath. Once all the pads are in place, remove the film from all of them and stick the wreaths down. Press gently to make sure everything is properly adhered. For the first card, I added Merry Christmas in the middle and I want all the cards to match. I'll trace the writing onto the other cards. You can find a link in the description for a downloadable outline of the Merry Christmas text along with all 3 wreath designs. Once I've traced the text, I'll place it on the card and lightly draw over it with my pencil to create a subtle indent. Then using a size 0 brush, I'll paint over the indent and go back over it to neaten the lettering. I'm repeating the same process for the last card, but this time I'm going to paint before attaching the wreath. You can choose whichever method works best for you. Now we're at the final step. I'm taking metallic gold ribbon, cutting about 30 centimeters and making a bow. You'll need a little bit of glue. I'm going to be using super glue, but any craft glue will be fine. Finally, I'm adding gold stars and speckles around the writing for an extra touch of sparkle. And we're all done! I've really enjoyed showing you how to make these 3D watercolour Wreath Christmas cards. I hope you had fun following along and have created some beautiful festive designs. If you did enjoy this tutorial, please give it a like and subscribe for more. I will see you in the next one. Until next time, happy painting!